Hello, my name is Adrian, and today I will be demonstrating how to use guided reading, an academic intervention. The research base for this intervention comes from Aquins's 2006 article, Guided Reading, a research-based response to the challenges of early reading instruction. So first, for the purpose of this intervention, you could do this with your entire class by dividing them into small groups of 4 to 6 students. Tonight, I'll just be using one student, which is another way you can do the intervention, one-on-one. Attempt to group your students by similar place in their reading development. This will be more effective so you can teach focused precisely on what the students' needs are so they can move forward to the next lesson. Next, you'll need to assign an appropriate level book to each group. Provide a copy of the book to each student in the group as well. Today we'll be reading An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. So for the teacher, at this point, they would want to introduce this story to the students, and they could say something like this. Today we'll be reading another book that has several chapters that are going to tell us a longer story. It's called The Inconvenient Truth, the crisis of global warming, and it's written by Al Gore. We will focus on Chapter 5, Extremely Wet and Extremely Dry today. So before your students begin reading, provide the students about different vocabulary words, themes, and background information about the story that might be helpful in their understanding. So sample words in this text that we could use would be global warming, precipitation, or irrigation. So these are words that you want to explain to the student prior to beginning. Background knowledge from this text that I pulled out from the very beginning on page 11 of this book is science has now proven beyond a doubt that Earth's climate is changing much faster than originally feared. Global warming is not caused by natural forces beyond our control. Human beings are the main cause of the problem. An example of the event caused by the effects of global warming here in the U.S. is Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which left many people homeless and cities devastated. So next you'll want to have your students read the story softly in their small groups. During this time, the teacher will now listen and help correct any errors and answer any questions the students might have. So you're going to want to walk around, monitor, you can provide reading prompts, some strategies for word identification as needed, and you'll move from student to student so you can listen to them. So you can begin. Find Chapter 5, Extremely Wet, Extremely Dry. Alright, so once your students have found the chapter, they can begin to read aloud softly in their groups. Okay, you can begin reading.
In the summer of 2005, while the U.S. was being battered by hurricanes, Europe was experiencing a
disastrous
series of floods. Warmer water increases the moisture content of storms, and warmer air holds more moisture. So when there's a downpour, more of it falls as a big one-time rainfall or snowfall. This, in part, accounts for the increased number of floods decade on every continent. Look at the graph below. From 1950 to 1960, there were fewer than 50 floods in all of Asia. Fast forward to the 1990s, there were 325 floods in Asia in the same period of time.
Let's see the graph. Okay, you can flip.
In July 2005, Mumbai in India received 37 inches of rain in 24 hours. It It was by far the largest downpour that any city in India has ever received in one day. Floodwaters rose to 7 feet. The death toll in the western Indiana reached 1,000.
You're fine.
India reached 1,000. To the left, you see rush hour the next day, as thousands of people waited to work. Global warming relocates rainfall so that certain places experience unusual dry spells. In China in 2005, there was flooding in one province, while a neighboring province experienced drought conditions. Globally, there have been dramatic changes in the amount of precipitation over the last century. On this map, blue dots mark areas all over the world with increased precipitation. The larger the blue dot, the larger that the increase. The orange dots don't show places with decreased precipitation. Again, the larger the dot, the greater the change. A large change either way can cause devastation to people of the area. Look at the places in the Western Africa on the edges of the Sahara Desert, always dry. They are now getting as little as a half the rainfall they used to. Without rain, crops cannot grow and people starve. The disappearance of Lake Chad. In Central Africa, there used to be a huge lake. 40 years ago, Lake Chad was the 6th largest lake in the world, as big as Lake Erie. People in the countries bordering the lake depended on its waters for crop irrigation, fishing, livestock, and drinking water. Because of declining rainfall and increased human use, Lake Chad has shrunk to 1/20th its original size.
Okay, we can stop there. So after the student has read the passage, the teacher will ask some different clarifying or different comprehension questions about the content of the story. So, over what you just read, how is global warming affecting our water and rainfall?
By it not raining.
Yeah, so it's kind of changing the amount of the temperatures, maybe changing the amount of the water receiving in certain places. We'll go back to the beginning. So, in this paragraph it talked about what?
Floods.
About floods, it did. So warmer water increases the moisture content of storms, and the warmer air holds more moisture. So this change in the temperature is causing our water to be higher in some places and lower in others. What happened to Lake Chad?
It decreased in size.
So it has less water, and that's due to global warming as well. So for this intervention to be successful, the appropriate level book must be assigned to each group. Each student in the group must have their own copy of the book, and the teacher should pre-teach any difficult information. Thank you.